Welcome, guys, to the DeVory Darkins show. And in today's episode, we're talking about how Democrats have just sabotaged another effort from Republicans in order to finally end this government shutdown. We know it's now a record. We know the president has become more focused and really continues to repeat himself multitude of times throughout the day in regards to ending the filibuster. We also know that a certain percentage of Senate Republicans refuse to do that. They don't believe that is the right course of action. And we also know that American citizens in the end who are directly impacted by this government shutdown, i.e. federal employees, air traffic controllers, people on SNAP and WIC, etc., they have had it up to here with it. We also know that a federal judge has issued an order late last night requiring the Trump administration to not only pay partial of the SNAP benefits, but to pay the remaining amount for the rest of November, meaning the judge is telling the administration to figure it out. And in the backdrop of all of this, the Democrats are high off their election win on Tuesday, which is why they are continuing to stand firm and, in my opinion, sabotage these efforts. Okay, so that's what this show is going to be all about today. We're going to be looking at a lot of the numbers. We're going to do a lot of the research and education in front of you. And not necessarily focus so much on rhetoric, of course. So we started the week off with focusing on critical thinking and really doing the research, and I think that's the best way to end this week. So if you guys are all good with that, just let me know in the chat. If this is the first time you're watching the show, this is all about common sense commentary for these uncommon times. I love to believe that the purpose of the show is to help people who are in the middle, the independents out there, the people who love to critically think for themselves. This is a place where they can come and get the full picture of what's happening in American politics. And that way, you can make up your own mind. I don't think there's any convincing people who feel the way they do about Trump. I don't think there's any way to convince people who are progressives, who are far left. I think there are a lot of people who can be convinced and absolutely are going to vote on the issues. And those are the people I hope that I'm speaking to. And so definitely, if you have found my show valuable, or you do during today's show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Multitude of ways to support the show. Of course, we do have a merch store. You can buy me a coffee, but I always say the best way is to keep watching, subscribe, and share the show. All right, let's start with CNN. And I guess if CNN is reporting that Democrats are not willing to play ball after everything that has happened at this point, there must be a lot of truth to it. Let's start with this first clip.
Progress on a potential agreement to reopen the government appears to have reached another dead end. Democrats signaled they are prepared to block Republican plans to force a vote today unless they get more firm commitments from their GOP colleagues to deal with rising health care costs. And as the status of negotiations changes by the hour, millions of Americans are not getting paid, and they are struggling to get by. Now, a federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to start making full food stamp payments as early as today. The White House is appealing the court's decision. Joining me now is Steph Knight. She is a politics reporter at Axios. Thank you so much for being here. Look, this is the longest shutdown in history. The last time this happened was during the Trump administration, the second longest now shutdown, and it was the air traffic controllers that broke the stalemate because there was a lack of them and it created a real mess at airports. Is there any indication that this might be the final straw to get Congress to do its job?
I mean, there's no question that the longer this shutdown drags on, the more painful this becomes for Americans in various industries, including federal workers who have now not been getting paid for over a whole month. And so that pain does matter. And Senate offices I've spoken to say that they are now starting to get more and more complaints and calls from constituents who are worried about how this shutdown is actually impacting their real lives. So it absolutely puts more pressure on the negotiations right now.
Yeah, so that was the risk that Democrats were willing to take. They're willing to leverage one issue over another, which is a huge no-no when you're running Congress, because we all know it's about bipartisanship and compromise in order to get things moving and get things done. We're at a point right now in our country where that is the last item on their priority list, right? So what they've done is they have taken Obamacare, the ACA subsidies, and they have used that issue to obviously weaponize the government shutdown. They've also used the government shutdown to energize their base to turn out and vote for them on Tuesday. And as a result, they are, I guess, running on this high cloud and confident of their strategy, which, again, the American people are not stupid. If you hurt them long enough, they will do radical things as a response, okay? That is the risk that overall, generally speaking, if we zoom out 30,000 feet, that is what will happen. The more both political parties continue to ignore the interest of the American voter, particularly the working class, the more likely it is that these voters will make a radical choice during elections. So it's easy to ignore that today, but when election time comes around and people are stunned and shocked, people shouldn't be, because the writing's on the wall. All right, let's go to, matter of fact, let's fast forward. Let's go to the example of how ridiculous Democrats are continuing to be. Play this.
When John Thune brings that vote out tomorrow morning to open up the government without dealing with the health care crisis, we are going to vote no once again. We are united in our opposition.
I think that there is no reason to surrender now, every reason to stand firm.
I think there will be some pretty substantial damage done to a Democratic brand that has been rehabilitated if on the heels of an election in which the people told us to keep fighting, we immediately stop fighting. If we surrender without having gotten anything, and we cause a lot of folks in this country who had started to believe in the Democratic Party to retreat again, I worry that it will be hard to sort of get them back up off the mat in time for next fall's election cycle.
Okay. Let's take Chris Murphy's argument and just exercise some logic. You guys, if you agree with me here, let me know. If you don't, you put your thoughts in the chat. Okay, so he believes that if Democrats, 7 of them, vote yes to open up the government today, that will signal them being weak. That will be a loss to their party, and that will, prevent their base from showing up to them showing up for them during the midterms. Here's my question, though. This is my thing. If you believe that millions of Americans are going to die because of ACA subsidies, this is Democrats' language. If you believe so strongly about that, open up the government and call the GOP's bluff. Okay, what does that mean? That means if the GOP claims that they will do the right thing and vote for whatever extension is needed on these subsidies, call their bluff then. And if they don't, and these subsidies expire, insurance premiums are going to go up. You think Republicans are going to win the midterms at that point? They're already struggling, in my opinion. You think somehow that's going to prevent Democrat voters from showing up and voting for Democrats? I don't think so. Maybe he knows something I don't. I just don't follow his logic on that. Democrat Party is definitely crazy, no question about it. But if people are already pissed off about the economy and insurance premiums are going to go up, who are they going to blame? They're going to blame Democrats? No, they're going to blame the president, and they're going to blame the Republican Party because they are in charge. That's what the average voter will do. Now, someone who's obviously aware and is going to do the research, they'll look past that and know it's really Democrats. But overall, people who are working 9 to 5 don't have time to tune into politics every day. They'll blame the federal government. They'll blame the party in charge. So his logic is flawed, in my opinion. But at any rate, you just heard it himself. They believe not compromising at this point would be the best strategy for the party. But clearly, it's not the best strategy for the American people. Now, to just show you, because I like to be thorough, listen to this representative, Miss Baldwin, and her thinking about why they should not compromise at this point. Take a look.
There were murmurs that a deal could be struck yesterday. John Thune now says that this newly drafted bill had input from Democrats, and he says this now, quote, they, Democrats, seem to be walking back or slow walking this. That is what they asked for. Is there a deal emerging, or is this deadlocked, and why aren't Democrats going for it?
Look, there's a lot of conversation going on, and I want to say that a lot changed this week. We had an election on Tuesday where voters resoundingly said we can't afford to make ends meet. And
to open the government.
That was something that caught President Trump's attention. For the very first time on Wednesday this week, he engaged in this. He told Republicans in the United States Senate, you have to reopen immediately. And that creates an opportunity for us to both lower health care costs with this looming crisis in the Affordable Care Act. People are shopping right now, and many opting not to renew health insurance because they simply can't afford it. We can reopen government and bring down these health care costs at the same time, and that's what we must do this weekend.
It's a fatal mistake, man. It really is. What do I mean by that, guys? They are clearly weaponizing one policy over another. They are not actually debating each policy on their own merits. They're trying to connect ACA subsidies to a government shutdown. They don't have anything to do with each other. The government shutdown is strictly because of a continuing resolution you guys have refused to vote for. That's it. It's got nothing to do with subsidies or anything else. Now, subsidies is another issue. And by the way, I just find it interesting how the party who created Obamacare, the party who voted for ACA subsidies, the party who put this expiration date on subsidies is the party trying to blame Republicans for a healthcare crisis. That's not going to work. Now, Republicans don't have anything to offer regarding healthcare either, so there's that, if we're going to give you the full picture. I haven't heard a clear vision from Republicans on healthcare in quite some time. You let me know if you have. I don't think they have one. So, they're not helpful in this situation either. And the fact that they allowed Democrats to vote in ACA subsidies during COVID has put us in this position, meaning the insurance companies are controlling these politicians. They are slave to these companies. And they're using our tax dollars to do it. More government spending, more inflation. And who gets hurt in the end? The American citizen. Okay. Now, what's interesting is this former Obama official, I believe he served as the Department of Homeland Security. Here's what he had to say. This is an interesting rebuke of Democrats. Take a look.
Now, for more on this, former Secretary of Homeland Security in the Obama administration, Jay Johnson. Jay, good morning. Of course, good morning. Thank you for being here. I mean, this is something where more and more, this is real pain for real Americans.
It's real pain for the American public. It's real pain for the federal workforce. Jonathan and I ran a cabinet department of 230,000 people, and I feel an obligation to speak for them. They have no voice in this process. They are political footballs, essentially, and they're either furloughed, sent home without pay, or they're forced to work without pay, dedicated to this country's aviation security, border security, cybersecurity, maritime security. And I will break ranks with my party to say this has got to stop. This is the longest government shutdown in history, 38 days. And we need to get out of the business of leveraging one issue on the back of another. Otherwise, this is going to become the new norm. When the Republicans are back in the minority, and they will be, they will say, well, you need 60 votes to reopen the government. Well, we want you to also address issue A, B, and C, and our democracy will spiral downward.
So what would be a good solution to prevent something like this from happening in the future? I think it's a couple of things that we should be demanding from our representatives. Number one, definitely Congress should not get paid during government shutdown. I think that's the most obvious thing ever. Number two, a government shutdown can't happen. They should actually prevent a government shutdown from happening by law. Meaning, if we cannot come to an agreement on the continuing resolution, the existing spending will continue. There will be no increase in spending. There won't be any. I guess the bad thing with it is you won't be able to reduce spending either. So if we can't come to an agreement, we're just going to keep spending the same money. We can only vote for a new CR if we are planning to reduce the budget or we're planning to increase the budget. But if we can't agree to reduce or increase, the government doesn't shut down. I would say that's a good solution, but I'm not serving in Congress, and I have no interest of serving in Congress, but because I don't believe something like that would even get voted into office because, again, these people are walking conflicts of interest. They can't help themselves. As much as they get in front of a camera and say that they care about the American people, the results say otherwise. And when you spend 95% of your time running for re-election and doing exactly what your lobbyists, your special interest groups, and your donors want you to do, the American people are not at the top of your priority list. That's just the reality, okay? And we talk about it all the time. It goes back to Citizens United. If somehow that could change, then I would have a more optimistic view of Congress. I just don't think they can help themselves. Now, however, it's not just Congress that's becoming a problem. It's the judiciary, meaning what? These lower court judges continue to issue rulings that are insane. For an example, I started the show with it earlier today where, this judge believes that they can tell this administration what to do regarding SNAP benefits. It is true by law that SNAP benefits payments are mandatory. It's the way Congress wrote the language. Mandatory meaning it doesn't matter if we're in a government shutdown. Those benefits by law must be paid. However, you can't pay the benefits if there's no money in the bank account, right? So even in that scenario, there's nothing the government can do about it until they agree, which goes back to my solution. A government shutdown should never be allowed to happen, okay? At any rate, this ruling came in yesterday, and here's what the vice president had to say about it. Take a listen.
Yeah, look, Jackie, it's an absurd ruling because you have a federal judge effectively telling us what we have to do in the midst of a Democrat government shutdown, which what we'd like to do is for the Democrats to open up the government. Of course, then we can fund SNAP, and we can also do a lot of other good things for the American people. But in the midst of a shutdown, we can't have a federal court telling the president how he has to triage the situation. We're trying to keep as much turned on. We're trying to keep as much going as possible. The president and the entire administration are working on that, but we're not going to do it under the orders of a federal judge. We're going to do it according to what we think we have to do to comply with the law, of course, but also to actually make the government work for people in the midst of the Democrat government shutdown. If they would like to end this, we would welcome working with them to end this government shutdown, and then we wouldn't have to triage what we're going to fund and what we're not going to fund. And the last thing that I'll say is the American people are unfortunately about to start suffering some very real consequences because of the shutdown. In the past, when you had a government shutdown, you would have under the Obama administration, they would lean into all of the problems it was going to cause for the American people at the beginning of the shutdown. The president has told us to keep as much going as humanly possible. But after 30 days of this thing, 40 days of this thing, you're going to start seeing very real travel delays. That's because the Democrat government shut down. You're going to start seeing SNAP benefits run out. That's because the Democrat government shut down. They should stop this charade and open up the government. That's what we want them to do. We've been asking them to do it for 40 days. It's time.
No question that it's time. Now, I saw this graphic on social media. This is interesting. States most dependent on food stamps. Okay, SNAP. Americans' primary food assistance program helps about 12% of Americans put food on the table. Now, I don't think this graphic is compensating for undocumented migrants, as Democrats would call it, right? Anyways, New Mexico is the highest at 21.5% of people on SNAP. Now, not many people live in New Mexico, by the way. Oregon, 18.1%. California, 13.9%. Gavin Newsom should probably focus on his own state. Nevada, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Louisiana, all above 15%. I think the lowest is Wyoming. And then you have Utah, which is to be expected because they don't do things in a certain way over there, or they do things in a certain way. It's different in Utah when it comes to getting benefits. And so this is something that's going to need to be addressed, of course. Anyways, states like New York, Massachusetts, and Hawaii, they receive $361. Hawaii reports some of the highest average benefits per person. These higher payments reflect steeper living costs in dense urban and island economies. In contrast, benefits tend to be smaller in lower coast Midwestern states such as Wisconsin and Minnesota, where overall food prices and housing costs are lower. low participation in western states. Wyoming has the lowest SNAP participation, and including Utah. Still, even in these states, food stamps remains a crucial safety net for tens of thousands of residents. Utah alone has $34 million in benefits each month to about 177,000 people. Can we do the math on that? What is going on? So 34 million divided by 177. So that's $192. Okay. Wow, that's a lot of money. It's insane. Yep, that is insane. Okay. So actually, let's see what you guys have to say so far before we keep moving here. I just think that I don't know if the word is black-pilled or disturbed or troubled, or I don't know what the proper term would be. But I got to tell you, I mean, Congress, this is a wake-up call for the American people. And the only thing that's going to get people in Congress attention is when the American people go to the ballot box and we do radical things. Unfortunately, some of these radical decisions will not be good for our country. That's what we're seeing in New York City. The voters made a radical choice. Now, when you go to ask the voters why they voted for Mondani, they can't really give you a high IQ answer. Okay? Doesn't matter. What's clear in their mind is whatever they claimed they said they were going to do for us, all these promises didn't work. And we've dealt with that on both sides politically for New York City. Hadn't worked. So, you know, they're going to make this choice and they're going to find out that those policies don't work either. And then someone else is going to come up and they'll vote for that person now. You know, it's like it goes back and forth. Okay, let's read some of your guys' comments. Mondani is not radical. Okay. Let me rephrase it. His policy positions are radical. Is that better for you? Let's keep going here. Listen, $38 trillion in debt is not Israel's fault, okay? I don't know why you guys have to connect every little thing in our country to Israel. Just some things are just basic common sense, okay? It's just basic common sense. Let's get going here. Yeah, Democrats want to budget without doing the budget. Yeah, see, the CR in and of itself violates financial literacy issues or principles, I mean. So instead of basically a CR is a temporary budget. That's the problem with it. And, you know, clearly the founding fathers and over our history, I don't think people really knew it'd get to this level. I don't think Citizens United was factored into the equation. If I'm going to point to the root cause, not the symptom, the root cause to the way this country is financially managed or mismanaged, the policies that never get passed that are common sense. I mean, both sides of the aisle can agree to certain things and those still don't even get passed. It's Citizens United. It allows corporations, lobbyists, special interest groups, foreign nations to donate money to election campaigns. So if someone gave me, you know, I don't care if you're Obama, where you received 200 million or 100 million from Facebook, or you're Trump, where you received, you know, 250 million from Elon Musk, the principle's still the same. And that's just the president. Imagine the people in Congress. So that really is the root cause to our issues here. That's what needs to change. Do you think the shutdown will end without serious concessions from the Republicans, if the goal to inflict so much pain as possible over the holiday season? I think already Republicans have compromised. Leader Thune sounds like a Democrat at this point. He says he'll give them whatever they want. They still declined him. That's why I said Democrats are literally sabotaging the American people and the Republicans' effort to get this government back open. Listen, Senator John Thune went from, we are not going to be forced and, we don't want people putting a gun to our head and making us do what is not good, which is to debate ACA subsidies over a government shutdown. He said that in the beginning. You know where he is today? Hey, Democrats, we'll give you whatever you want. Okay, we commit to casting a vote on ACA subsidies. And Democrats still said no. That's what I'm saying. These people are radical, are clearly radical. And they don't care about the American people. You can't say you care about the American people and then continue to allow the government to be shut down. That doesn't fly. It just doesn't fly. You know, it's like they used to tell us this in the military. I mean, even if someone who owns a business, you got to take care of your people first. Okay? You got to make sure your employees are fed, right? I mean, you have to make sure your people can eat food today, right? You could talk about all this fighting all you want, but if your people are not getting fed, how long is that going to last? That's where we're at today. See, that's the difference in the conversation when we first had to start talking about the government shutdown over a month ago compared to today. I mean, listen, I think even someone who's good with their money would probably have maybe max 2 months saved up. Well, we're already past the month. Now imagine the people who are not good with their money, or they're living a lifestyle that doesn't allow them to save any money because that's just the situation they find themselves in. These people are screwed. And a lot of these people are Democrats. Why don't we watch this clip just to bring this point home? This is podcaster calling in, or is on CNN, telling the CNN host, hey, I got people who call into my show who are Democrats who are fed up with this. Watch this.
I have a very eclectic listening crowd. I'm even having some Democrats who are coming on, and they're seeing through a lot of the minutia of what's really happening because they can do the math. They notice that there are 55 votes that are voting and to open the government, and they don't see a lot of Democrats on that side. And so they're saying open up the government and open it up now. Chuck Schumer, not Donald Trump.
That's it. Well, we know Chuck Schumer's screwed. Yep. Don't forget the addition of all the illegals to the ACA. Exactly. The LDS Church takes care of Utah where the government can't. See, I like hearing that. I think we depend too much on the government. I think it needs to be 50-50. I think if we really, like, for all those people who don't like Amazon or Tesla or any of these companies getting tax breaks, why don't we do this instead? Hey, federal government, slash everything in half. The other half will need to be funded by these corporations. Let's do that. That way, when a consumer is spending their money on Amazon, they know this money is going back into the economy to help people. Let's do that. That way, we prevent the government from having their hands too much in control of how these benefits are being paid out. Listen, I think Elon Musk said it best. Let's see if we can find this. Elon Musk said it best. He was talking about how the federal government is a DMV, a large-scale DMV. Anybody who's been in a DMV knows it's not efficient whatsoever. Let me find his original one. Here it is, right here. Let's go. Let's zoom in for you guys here. There we go. As soon as you understand that the government is just the DMV at large scale, it makes perfect sense. Then he went on to say this. The reason the government programs are so inefficient is that unlike a commercial company, the feedback loop for improvement is broken because they have a state-mandated monopoly and can't go out of business if customers are unhappy. No matter how bad the service is at your DMV, sorry to pick on DMVs, you still have to use your DMV because it's a monopoly. And that's why I agree with Paul here. First comment, that's why the government needs to be as small as possible so it can only do the least damage. And then if we want people to pick up the slack, then we get corporations and private companies and nonprofits to kick in. Even if the government said, we'll slash in half, and then we'll also dedicate money to nonprofits and private companies when it comes to tax cuts when they kick in money. Like, I mean, there is a way out of this, is my point. It's not like it's impossible. There's something that could be done. The question is, does Congress have the spine to do it? Which I think we know the answer to that. I think we know the answer to that. It's probably no. Okay. Yep, stop Congress salaries. I agree. No budget, no salary. That's a good slogan. See, how about we do this? How about these No King protesters and George Soros and all of them? Let's put all our money together and let's manufacture the same sign that says no budget, no salary, and march down on Capitol Hill. I think both sides could agree to that. What do you guys think? Probably not, right? Yeah, mandatory drug tests, birth control, and volunteer work for all people on federal assistance. It's not a bad option. Yeah, let's look this up just so you guys understand. Work requirements, SNAP. You guys can actually look this up for yourself. It's on their website right here. See, this has absolutely triggered Democrats to a whole nother level. So the one big beautiful bill that they passed back in March is now they have updated the work requirements regarding SNAP. SNAP has two sets of work requirements: the general work requirements and the able-bodied adult without dependent work requirements. Let me say that again, and I'll zoom into it so you guys can see it here. The able-bodied adult without dependents. That is so genius. Work requirements. So let me show the reader. That'll be easy for us to read. Here we go. Let's go to able to work work requirements. If you are age 18 years old to 54, able to work, and don't have any dependents, you might need to meet both the general work requirements and an additional work requirements to get SNAP for more than 3 months in 3 years, the time limit. First requirement: you have to be working at least 80 hours a month. Work can be for pay for goods or services, or you need to participate in a work program at least 80 hours a month. Participate in a combination of work and work program hours for a total of at least 80 hours a month, or participate in work fare for the number of hours assigned to you each month. You only get the exemption if you're unable to work, you have a mental limitation, you're pregnant, you're under the age of 18, you're a military veteran, experiencing homelessness, or you're age 24 or younger and in foster care on your 18th birthday. Those sound reasonable to me, you know? So how is it that we have 42 million people on SNAP? It's because these requirements are new. Okay. I mean, if you entered the country illegally, then you were granted temporary protection status, you're sitting in a sanctuary state, you may have found a way to get on SNAP. Now, if you're going to cross the border illegally and do all that, you should be working 80 hours at a minimum. Okay? Now, we all, if you have my same beliefs, these people should still get deported, by the way, okay? Because there are people who did it the right way. You're not going to run it's just not fair, okay? It's common sense, all right? And if Democrats felt so differently, which we already know they do, they should have created a law to compensate for that, and they haven't done it. Meaning the people who've been in the country for 30 years still have not gotten their papers in order. What's the program for them? Oh, that's right. Democrats never came up with one. But then they cry when those people get deported. I don't want to hear it. At any rate, I think it's smart that they did the work requirements for able-bodied people without dependents. Totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. All right, let me check out on YouTube, and then we'll keep going here. Before the feds took over and created welfare, the local community would take care of those that needed help. Exactly. Far-right extremists here. Love the show. Yeah, that's the words that the Democrats use to describe someone like me for sure. Let's see here. I'm a corporate tax accountant. Make no mistakes. Increase corporation taxes and prices go up. Reduce corporate tax and prices don't go up. People who want to screw corporations are screwing themselves as consumer pays. This is the part that I always laugh at. Not this comment. I'm talking about people who believe corporations are the problem. No, the only problem with corporations is Citizens United. They get to donate money to election campaigns. That's the problem, in my opinion. At any rate, people have to understand, when you say corporation, people are thinking Amazon and Best Buy and, Tesla. No. You know your local mom and pop shop on Main Street is a corporation, right? I hope people understand that. So when the president introduced his tax cuts in the first administration, it didn't just benefit Amazon. It benefited the businesses on Main Street. So when you raise taxes, unless you're coming out and saying, we only want to raise taxes on corporations that have 5,000 or more employees or something like that. Even then, I'm skeptical of doing that, but fine. But I haven't heard that from any party, by the way. And the reality is, we think by using more taxes is going to solve our problems economically. It's not going to, because what happens, it's called cause and effect. Okay, the cause is you raise taxes on these companies, on these corporations, okay? And the effect is they have to go back to their budget and they have to factor in that cost, and that can lead to a reduction in force, the amount of people they're employing, or it could contribute to an increase of prices for the consumer. It's just like what we just saw in California. Let's raise the minimum wage. What happened? These companies had to lay off people. They're already working on slim margins. Why would you do that to the restaurant industry? You think is it some type of secret that people in the restaurant industry are paid minimum wage? Do you think that's on purpose? Do you think that the owner wants to intentionally pay their workers minimum wage? They don't have a choice. It's called slim margins, people. Unless you want these restaurants to charge high fees like you're eating at a highfalutin steak dinner restaurant, you're not going to pay those prices for something basic down on Main Street for some avocado toast. You're not going to do that. So, it's easy when you get a politician in front of a camera to say things like this: tax the rich, tax these corporations. They have no idea what they're talking about. Most of these people, they don't even operate businesses. They've never even operated a business. They may have invested in businesses. They may have gotten rich via the stock market by investing in these businesses. They have no business experience like that. That's why they make these policies, and in reality, it doesn't work. It's just, it is what it is. And then you have people who are like, well, why does the CEO make $30 million and we have people making $60,000 on the payroll? I've gone through this, but I want to go through it again because I think this is such valuable information. And I wish someone would have taught this to me when I was 18. What dictates how much money a person can earn in the economy that we live in today? It's three things: the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there is in replacing you. The need for what you do means how hard is the problem that you are solving? How valuable is that problem that you are solving? Is it a big problem? Well, let's just exercise this using our critical thinking skills. The lowest employee on the payroll of Amazon, I would imagine it wouldn't be a janitor because they probably contract that out. So let's say someone who's in charge of filing paperwork, okay? Let's just say that, basic stuff, clerical work. Let's say that person only makes $60,000 a year. Can the people who are hiring for Amazon go find people like that every single day? Absolutely, they can. They can find 1,000 of them within a week if they wanted to. There's no shortage of people who can file paperwork. That's not really a big problem. In fact, in some cases, we're getting to a point where AI might be able to help with that. Okay. Well, can you go find a Jeff Bezos who has his leadership skills, who can make certain decisions under pressure, and can communicate with a board of directors in a certain way to keep the company moving in the right direction, even when the economy changes, and can manage a leadership team? No, you can't find that person every day. It doesn't work like that. That's a person who has a set of skills, and this is their calling. That is what they're great at, okay? It's like, sports. I always use this example. There is not another LeBron James in the league right now. So the need for what you do is the problem that you're solving. A CEO, the problem they solve is much more valuable than someone doing clerical work. Okay. Your ability to do it. How good is the CEO? Okay. You could say that the CEO is great at their job, and you could say the person working this clerical job is better than the CEO, but they miss out on the first principle. They're not really solving a big problem. But at any rate, you got to be good at what you do. And number 3, if you're really good at what you do, you will be difficult to replace. You can't replace Jeff Bezos, but you can replace 1,000 clerical workers at any point in a large corporation. So summary, what dictates someone's ability to make a lot of money or not a lot of money? It's 3 principles: the need for what they do, their ability to do it, the difficulty there is in replacing them. That's why when people cry about money, and people I know that have their 2 legs, they have a brain, they can work hard, these people, they just don't have the right information, okay? Able-bodied people, especially people who don't even have any kids, they definitely don't have the right information if they're struggling financially, because these are people that can go out right now in this marketplace and they can find a problem that's very valuable that they could solve. That's why I always talk about skills. You start becoming aware of what you're naturally great at. Some of you guys already have a talent and a skill that will solve a big problem for people. But a lot of people are stuck in their mindset. They don't believe they can do it. They don't believe they can make any money, or they don't believe they're worthy of it. That's a whole nother thing. Anyways, the difficulty in replacing you is exactly what it sounds like. So I don't want to hear about, the CEO makes $30 million and the person is only making $60K. More than likely, they're not solving a big problem. And if you believe you're that person where you're like, man, I should be making way more money, then the question should be, what problem are you solving for people? And maybe the answer isn't in the company you're working for. Maybe you got to go work for a different company. Maybe you got to start your own business. I'm not telling you guys what to think. This is just something that was taught to me and made a huge, profound impact on my life financially. I've never been the same after learning that lesson alone, because it got me in the mindset of stop looking at myself as a victim and thinking that the economy is screwing me. And like, wait a minute, instead of thinking about me, why don't I think about people? What can I do for my neighbors? What can I do for people I run into? What problems do they have that I can solve? Now you're thinking from a place of your purpose, which is to serve on this planet that God has blessed us with. Okay. Let's go to CNN confronting Democrats on the SNAP benefits and this shutdown. This is a good one. Watch this.
Let's be clear that the food stamp debate could be settled today if they would just comply with the judge. They don't get to just decide which court orders they like or don't like. They actually have to do what is legal, and it is illegal to withhold food from the hungry. On the shutdown, I'm here in D.C. My colleagues in the House on the Democratic side have been here ready to negotiate. But it is now almost 6.5 weeks that Mike Johnson hasn't brought us back. I've never had such a long time where the speaker has kept us out of the House, out of negotiating.
The House, though, has already passed the CR, the clean resolution, to continue the government opening it. It's up to the Senate now, not the House.
Well, it is and it isn't, right? Because what Mike Johnson did is send us home. It was not a clean resolution, just to be clear. It cut funding from last year's levels going back to March. That's why the Democrats in the House voted against that continuing resolution, because it was not clean. It was
clean in the sense that what was already approved was going forward, but there was a stipulation in the CR that the funding for the healthcare subsidies but there was a date set when it would end, and they wanted that date to be extended, and it wasn't extended.
There are two different issues, but both really important. So the CR itself continued the cut funding from March, but to send the House Democrats home without getting a resolution from the Senate and from the president, I think is abdicating responsibility. You have to wait for the bill to be passed. You can't just go home and try to jam the Senate, which is what they did.
Yeah. I mean, if you have Wolf Blitzer pushing back on you and educating you on why you're wrong, I think we got problems, right? I think we really got problems. Now, before we go any further and get your guys' reaction to all of this, let's hear this message from today's sponsor. I think this is a good time to recircle back on our health. We were just discussing this in our recent live stream. Don't know if you watched it or not, but when you're talking about your lifestyle and how you eat, it affects everything, including the way you lose weight and gain weight. In fact, scientists have come up with this term called weight cycling. Now, what is that exactly? Well, weight cycling is when you gain, let's say 10 pounds as an example, and then you lose 10 pounds and then you gain it back again. Okay. And they say it's actually detrimental to your health and can lead to serious health issues. This is the study right here. Repeatedly losing and then regaining weight when often happens with the yo-yo dieting may stress the heart, experts say. I think the bottom line is this is why we need help to stop the weight gain and loss in that way. And we could do that by using a non-prescription supplement called Lean. Now, the cool thing about Lean, it's not a GLP injection. It's not something you have to go get a prescription for. It's just a one-pill supplement that you take, created by scientists, by the way. Its studied ingredients also target weight loss in 3 powerful ways. Let me read it to you. 1, it helps maintain healthy blood sugar. 2, it helps control your appetite and cravings. And number 3, it burns the fat by converting it to energy. We know if that happens, you're likely to lose weight. So if you want to lose weight in a more meaningful way, all you have to do is use promo code DeVory at takelean.com. They're going to give you 20% off. Again, that is takelean.com. Use promo code DeVory to get 20% off today. Okay. I want to show you guys something. I think you will enjoy this. I want you guys to look at this. This is insane. Okay. United Healthcare Group, or United Health Group, as you guys know, their CEO was murdered, right? The guy still hasn't been sent to prison, by the way. Anyways, 105,000 increase since the beginning of them being public on the stock exchange there. Okay. Now, look at the date. Look at the date. So the argument that we're making here is that you wonder why they're so hell-bent on ACA subsidies. You wonder why the Democrats have not fixed Obamacare. Because it's about money. They have made money from this. They have made money from this. Isn't it interesting that the value of these companies have continued to go up, including the insurance premiums? Did you know that insurance premiums have outpaced inflation? Even when we had record high inflation under Biden, the premiums still outpaced that number. But Democrats claim this is a Republican healthcare crisis. No, this is a Democrat healthcare crisis that Republicans have no solution to either. That's the more accurate description. I think that's, I don't know what the older generations are going to do as these premiums continue to get higher, because I don't think they were expecting these premiums to be this high at this point. Okay, let's keep going here. My health insurance went from $27 a month to $57 to $97 to $127. Now it's $547. They love the number 7, don't they? Yeah. Obamacare was a solution. The problem is it just didn't work out long term. It makes sense. Hey, let's create this marketplace. People can shop plans. I mean, on the face of that, that makes total sense. The problem is if these insurance companies are jacking up the price, then what? Right? And then when you subsidize them jacking up the price, then we really have problems, which is where we're at today. And then some of you guys know, if you follow me every day, we partnered with Chapter, this is about Medicare. You have brokers looking to take money out of the hands of seniors because it's all about making money for them, not really taking care of the people. It's a flawed system. There's no question about it. Let's see here. Yeah, it's all about money. Let's see here. But how do we feed them when there is no money? There is money. There's plenty of money. That's why I said, if we get corporations, nonprofits, the community more involved, and what I mean by that is we need to reduce the government's influence on this stuff. Like, the only purpose of the government really is to make sure that in this system of capitalism, that the American consumer is not getting screwed in a fraudulent, negligent way, okay? Like, that's all I would want from the government. Now, if someone wants to buy cigarettes and smoke themselves into cancer, they can go ahead and do that. That's the freedom of being in this country. But there should be a label on there. Now, if we really want to be extreme, we should just ban cigarettes, okay? You could go to that level. I'm not too sure many people will vote for that because, again, who are we to tell a company what they can't sell? But I think the government has done a great job of making sure companies are labeling things properly and letting the consumer know. This kind of segues back to what I was talking about yesterday with food. I mean, if you pick up the bottle, let's see, do I have something here? No, I don't have any food over here. Obviously, I'm not in my kitchen. Here's a great example. I was just eating this before the show. Okay. Can you guys see this on screen? Yeah, you guys can see that, right? There we go. Nature's Bakery Fig Bar, okay? Now, this is probably one of the few items that I eat that is processed, by the way. I was talking about this yesterday, right? There's like 50, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Let's say 22 ingredients in here. My point is like, this is a problem. And it's a problem because the more ingredients you're seeing, it's because it's about money. That's my whole point to showing that. It's about money. And the government has done a great job of fixing the labels on these packaging of these products. Okay, that's why I wanted to show it to you. So obviously you can see on this package where it says non-GMO, which is, you have to show that if that's what you're claiming, right? And you have to be certified. They have another one where it's showing you whether it's kosher. They have another one where it's telling you if it's nut-free, very important. Especially gluten is another one. They'll tell you that if the product usually has gluten and I've taken it out. Another lie that they'll tell us is this. This used to be a problem too. So this is sparkling water I like to drink often. So the only thing I really drink on a daily basis is water, sparkling water, tea, and coffee. I don't drink anything else. I'm serious. Like, you're not going to find me drinking anything else. Now, maybe for Christmas or something like that, New Year's, we want to get a little razzle dazzle going. We might have a. All right, let me slow down. Anyways, so on the back of this label, it says contains 2% juice. Okay. Before, they didn't used to tell us that. They had to be sued in order to start telling people that, because people started thinking, oh, if this says that there is lime in here, that means they put actual lime juice, right? No, they put lime flavor. Okay. So I share all that to say that that's where the government does something good, where they say, hey, listen, you guys can sell this stuff, but you got to tell the American people what's in it. Don't lie to them. Don't manipulate them. Don't try to go around it. Don't try to make up some big word that masks all the things that are in there. Just tell people exactly what's in it. And then let them make up their own mind if they still want to eat it or consume it. That's a great way where the government does something good. It gets bad when they try to control prices, when they're trying to control corporations. That's not going to work. That is not going to work. And so you can't have the federal government trying to control people. The more they try to control, the more it backfires. And so now I will say this: Europe, countries like Italy have proven that some decisions by the government is something that makes sense long term if you're talking about the health of the country itself. So like, we should ban certain ingredients in our food. Now, one can make the argument, hey, the government shouldn't be allowed to do that. Well, if these ingredients are proven to kill people, then I think they have an argument there, right? I think that's good because we're talking about the health of the American citizen. And I think if we want to play this game, just let the American citizen vote for it then, which is why we have representatives in Congress, right? But as you guys can see, why does it take someone like RFK Jr. to finally make the policy that food dyes should be removed, certain preservatives should be removed? Why does it take for someone like him to finally do that? That should have happened like 20 years ago. Here's a good comment. The government should be as big as possible to help support its people. SNAP should really be funded by billionaires and should be forced to reach every family. Well, that sounds like you want to live in socialism. And let's say we follow this logic. That means the only way the government is going to get any bigger is because they are receiving money. Who are they going to receive money from? Who's going to pay to expand the size of the government? Me and you. Then if you tell billionaires that they are responsible for SNAP benefits, one, why would they do business in our country? And let's say the people that do stay. Two, then who becomes a slave to the billionaires, the people on SNAP? Is that what you want? Say what you want about Dave Ramsey, but he definitely got one thing right. When you go loan money, you become slave to the lender. You do what they tell you to do. Your decision making is dictated on the terms that they have presented to you. Yeah. Anybody who wants bigger government, that's a person who hasn't, they have not done any research historically. They have no idea. That's just a pure ignorant statement, no question. And another thing, yeah, I agree with you guys. Utilities. It's the same thing that's happening in California. Let's see if we can go to this right here. Which states pay the most for electricity? Okay. The lowest is 10 cents per kilowatt. The highest is 38.3 cents per kilowatt. Okay. Since 2023, electricity prices have risen faster than the pace of inflation. Let's look at the top culprit, Hawaii. And it's interesting. You never hear anybody talking about Hawaii, including myself, because we almost forget it's a state. It is one. And it's a very expensive place to live. But if you were to remove Hawaii off the board, it's going to be California most of the time. California has the most solar installed on residential housing and apartment buildings and community buildings like townhomes, etc. But we still have, or they still have, the highest electricity price. I used to tell you guys this story all the time. I remember I had to pay one bill that was $1,200 for electricity. That's insane. That's not because I'm abusing my my AC unit. That's because the cost per kilowatt has tripled since 2019. It's insane. Electricity is so high in California that you could still get solar and you still have to pay the electricity company. Did you guys understand what I'm saying there? The electricity is so high, the system is so corrupt that you could still get solar, and at the end of the year, you still owe the electricity company money. It's crazy. And the reason why that is, for people who are really interested, is because best way to put it is this. In California, actually in this entire country, anyone with a home has a main panel, which is the electricity coming into the home, right? Coming from the light pole, you have the electricity goes into this main panel, and then it's what's being used throughout the house. Switches. Okay. Well, somewhere between next to that main panel, before that main panel, after the main panel, depending on where you live in this country, in California, they have a meter that is tracking the amount of electricity that is being used by the home. You know who owns the meter? Not the person who owns the home, the electricity company. They own it. Similar to the light poles that you see on the street. You don't own that. The electricity company owns it. It's interesting the way things are. So at any rate, these utilities, they are a monopoly in and of itself. And the problem is in California is when you have a monopoly like a PG&E, which is Pacific Gas and Electric, which they are responsible for one of the biggest fires in the history of California. You can't control when they want to raise the prices on the cost of electricity. There's nothing that you can do about it. You can fight about it, but Gavin Newsom, listen, they paid for his campaign, so, there's that. All right, let's go back to you guys. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, you live in California. You never had a bill that high. Where do you live in California? Where do you live in California? We used to live in the section of California that has the highest electricity prices because it's one of the hottest areas in California. You can't survive in that area without an AC. We're talking about during the summer, it getting 105, 108, 110. Okay. And then this is a good one. Data centers need electricity. See, this is a whole nother thing that's coming. This is why we should be aware. I've been telling you guys that AI is going to require warehouses, particularly data centers, right? And that requires what? Electricity. So what happens when they build an AI warehouse in your neighborhood? The electricity prices are going to go up. You think the electricity company is going to eat that price or jack up the price on the government when they know that this is going to help them make more money? No. They're going to pass it down to the consumer. I know that firsthand because that's what happened in California. So PG&E, which is the monopoly over there in California, one of their transformers was responsible for one of the biggest wildfires in history. Obviously, they were supposed to go bankrupt, and the state of California basically bailed them out. However, they still owed the money. Okay? So what PG&E was allowed to do is take whatever debt they were in because of this catastrophic event, and they made their customers pay it. See, that's when the government should step in at that point. See, that's where it makes sense for government to do something, okay? If PG&E wants to exist or companies like that, I don't have a problem. But when you're sticking it to the customer in that way, yeah, something should be done. That's why it's the highest in the country. It's just a personal example. All right, let's see. I think we're at the end here. Yeah, here's another stat for you guys. Let's see if we can go to this. Here we go. The median age of a first-time home buyer in the United States has surged to a record 40 years old. I thought it was 37, actually. This is up from a median age of 33 years old in 2021 and 29 years old in 1981. Over the last year, first-time home buyers made up just 21% of purchases, the lowest on record. Meanwhile, the typical age of a repeat buyer's hit an all-time high of 62. Let me zoom in so you guys can see what I see. With their median down payments reaching 23%, the highest since 2003. Record home prices and high mortgage rates have created the worst buying conditions on record, locking younger Americans out of home ownership. The U.S. housing affordability crisis is worsening. And here is the graphic for you to see it for yourself. So, yeah, from the year, let's say 1990 to 2000, things were, kind of normal. But we're talking what? At least, what is that, a 50% increase, it looks like? I might have the math wrong, 150% maybe. That's what that is. 150% increase, basically. And that's just housing. We're still not talking about student loans. We're not talking about the current default rate on real estate, which is the highest at this point right now as well. So it's interesting times ahead, to say the least. This is why I'm a firm believer, and we don't need to sit around complaining. What we got to do is get to work, but first we got to get the right information, and it's something we're going to need to find success in this new economy. And in my personal experience, I'm just one person. I know there's almost 400 million people who live in this country. But in my experience, in my young experience, I think in this new economy, because I've done it for myself, is first you got to understand financial literacy. Even if you're not the best person at it, you have to understand the basics. You have to spend less than you make. It's easy, but absolutely misunderstood by most people. They don't realize it. And it's not something you can just talk about. You get down, meaning you sit down and you run the numbers. You write it out. I mean, there's so many apps today that will tell you where your money's going. It only takes you one time. Once you see where your money's been going, you're like, whoa, I see my problem here. Now, the flip side is you can only cut so much money. Sooner or later, you need to make more money. Okay? For some people out there. And I think that if we're going to continue to advance as the average American citizen, I don't believe you need to, again, be rich. I just think you need to understand, one, how to manage your money, and then two, how you can leverage your skills to advance faster in your career, or do something on the weekends by having your own business. I think that's definitely possible. And here's the other thing for people who are older and they think, I can't do anything like that. I'm too old. No, you're not. No, you're not. You have a lifetime of experience. There's something inside of you that can help someone out there. And it's worth money. And buying into this idea that nobody has any money, that's ridiculous. People spending money every single day. People have money. They just spend it on the wrong things. People definitely have money for problems they want solved. Even if they don't have the money physically today, they'll go find it. How do we know that to be true? Because me and you, we've done it ourselves. We made decisions. We made buying decisions when we didn't have the money. We went and found it. Now, again, that may not be the smartest financial literacy decision. However, depends on the problem we're talking about. So I believe it doesn't matter your age. In this system of capitalism, we have the ability to improve our financial situation regardless of things like this that we're seeing on the graph. Now, the reality is the average person out there who's making $100,000 a year, yeah, you probably can't afford a house right now. But that doesn't mean you won't be able to buy one in the future. It just may not make financial sense right now, you know? And the problem is a lot of Americans have it in their mind that, hey, I'm successful when I buy a house. No, you're not. You're taking on a liability. Okay? Now, unless you buy the house cash, which is totally different, or you're of the mindset of, I'm going to buy this and turn around and take equity out and go buy another house or something like that, so the money's working for you. But for the average person, it's no longer, hey, if I go buy a house, I'm going to be successful in this economy. Not right now. Now, if you bought a house in 2019, yeah, you didn't have to do anything. Just sit there. And now you probably get this. If you bought a house in 2019, the value of that home probably exceeded how much you bought it for. In a lot of cases, that's exactly what happened under record inflation. That's why you can go to Los Angeles today and you could see people who are living in a 2-bedroom home, okay? In a 2-bedroom home and 1 bath in this neighborhood that's only it's a tight road, okay? It's not a big road where it's easy to pass each other on both sides of the road, okay? And you can look out your window into the window of your neighbor, and that home is worth $1 million today, when really that home used to be only worth $400,000. There are people who are millionaires on the books just because of the rise of inflation, not because they did anything differently. So that's also something that is misunderstood by people in regards to that. So again, solutions again would be to not complain so much, but to find ways to be of service to other people. I think that's the bottom line to today's show. I think that's exactly what I'm doing here. I think we all can do it. And I think we got to stay aware of what's happening in Congress so we understand the choices that we need to make moving forward. All right. Bottom line is, going into the weekend, this government is still shut down. The president has continued to call for the filibuster. Not going to happen. Republicans don't believe in that right now, not as far as the majority is concerned. Democrats are riding this highway because they won their elections on Tuesday. But what they're displaying to even their constituents who are starting to notice is that they're putting political gain ahead of the well-being of the American people. And so we have reached a record high, and I believe Thanksgiving is like 2 weeks away, right? 2.5 weeks or something like that. So we'll see how long this goes. All right. That's all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching us Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern time, bringing you common sense commentary. If you found value in today's live stream, please subscribe, follow us, share this stream with people you care about. And with that, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Have a great weekend, everyone.